This all went down early last December when I was driving home from school. I was tired after a long day of classes and exams. My mind was foggy, which probably explains why I didn't notice the big Suburban in my blind spot when I changed lanes. When I realized my mistake, I quickly moved back to my original lane and waved an apology after she honked at me. This woman took my driving error as a personal insult. Within seconds, she floored it, swerving around me and cutting me off so aggressively I had to slam on my brakes. The speed limit was 45 miles per hour and I was already going 50. She must have been going at least 70 to pass me that quickly. I gave her plenty of space, which was a good decision because she immediately brake checked me again, bringing our entire lane down to about 15 miles per hour, all while hanging her arm out the window to flip me off. I have a dash cam in my car, so even if I had hit her, I could have gotten the insurance payout. But dealing with insurance is a hassle, and I love my car too much to risk damaging it. Other cars started passing us in the left lane, so I tried to do the same. No luck, she swerved in front of me again. Eventually, she let me pass and I waved another apology, which she answered with another middle finger. We both stopped at a red light and she pulled up beside me. She screamed at me to roll down my window, using a racial slur even though I'm not black. I kept my window rolled up, worried she might have a weapon. Other drivers started honking at her since she was blocking the lane next to me just to yell, but she didn't care. When the light turned green, I made a loop around the block, hoping to lose her. She followed. I even drove down an open stretch of road to see if she'd give up the chase. My car is heavily modified and could easily outpace her SUV, but she kept up. I thought, what kind of person has this much time on a weekday to follow someone around? I couldn't drive home. What if she came back later and did something to my house or car? Finally, I called the police. I was right at the boundary of 3 different counties, so I got bounced between dispatchers for about 5 minutes before reaching the correct jurisdiction. When I finally reached the right dispatcher, I explained my situation, telling them about the woman in the Suburban who'd been following me for almost half an hour. I told them how she brake checked me twice and was tailgating me dangerously close. I said I was worried about my safety. The dispatcher told me to drive toward the nearest police precinct while they sent an officer to intercept us. During this conversation, the woman was still flipping me off and honking her horn. She was tailgating so closely that the dispatcher could hear her honking through my phone. At this point, it had been over 30 minutes since the original incident. Who has this much time on their hands? I stayed calm and kept updating the dispatcher as I passed each intersection. Finally, I spotted a Dodge Charger speeding up behind us. I couldn't tell if it was a patrol car since it looked like an undercover vehicle with no lights visible yet. I asked the dispatcher if there was an officer behind us, and they said it was their officer. They told me to pull over when I saw the lights. When the blue and red lights flashed on, I pulled into a nearby church parking lot. The woman followed, still not realizing what was happening. The moment she jumped out of her SUV, her face dropped as she finally noticed the police lights behind us. And what did she do next? She ran toward the officer's car. The officer told her to stop right where she was. She froze. Shortly after, 2 more police cars arrived with additional officers. I waited in my car until an officer approached my window. In the background, I could hear the woman spinning some ridiculous story. When the officer came to hear my side and I stepped out of my car, she yelled across the parking lot that I sucked at driving. The officer shouted back at her, warning that she'd be detained if she didn't quiet down. I explained everything that had happened, the brake checking, the tailgating, the racial slurs, which she denied. But when I mentioned that I had it all on dashcam, her face went pale. The officer reviewed the footage on my phone showing all the brake checks, her excessive speed, and dangerous tailgating. Then he asked if I wanted to press charges. I told him absolutely. They searched her SUV and found an unregistered handgun underneath the driver's seat, along with a small bag of MJ, which isn't legal in my state. This woman got arrested for reckless driving, endangerment, possession of illegal substances, and several other charges. As for me, the officer just told me to drive carefully. No ticket, nothing. 3 years ago, when I was 24, I spent 12 weeks in a psychiatric hospital for severe depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. While most of the staff were compassionate angels who genuinely wanted to help us heal, there was one nurse who seemed determined to make our already difficult lives even worse. We called her the Wrinkle because of the permanent scowl line between her eyebrows and because her actual name rhymed with it. My first encounter with her was during a group feedback session on my second day. One patient politely asked if we could open a window. The Wrinkle rudely asked if the patient was dumb, pointing out that it was February. Her tone was harsh and dismissive. Her response was so harsh that I immediately disliked her. But that was just the beginning. The Wrinkle had a talent for making patients cry. She'd insult us, scream at us for minor mistakes, and create arbitrary rules like forbidding television during meals even when everyone wanted to watch something. The worst offense, though, was how she'd dismiss patients with serious issues if they interrupted her mealtime. There I was, having a panic attack, a genuine medical emergency, and instead of helping, she yelled at me because she was busy eating dinner. I struggled to speak through my panic attack, apologizing and telling her I couldn't breathe. The Wrinkle snapped back that she was eating and told me to control myself or go back to my room. Several of us filed complaints, but the hospital administration claimed their hands were tied. The Wrinkle had a fixed contract, and with a staffing shortage, they couldn't afford to let her go. Even when we reported that she ignored patient emergencies, nothing happened. We couldn't do anything drastic without risking our treatment spots. When you're fighting for your mental health, the last thing you want is to be discharged before you're ready. But we weren't completely powerless. One day, a fellow patient, a 26-year-old guy who became my friend, and I went to the hospital gift shop and bought a large pack of googly eye stickers. It started innocently enough. We put googly eyes on the rules paper that the Wrinkle had posted on the office door, adding ridiculous made-up rules that supposedly only applied during her shift. We created a fake rule stating no smiling was allowed on Tuesdays when the Wrinkle was present. We added another made-up rule that patients must walk backward when the Wrinkle enters the room. Then we moved on to her photo displayed in the lobby alongside other staff pictures. The Wrinkle would tear down the googly eyes, but during every one of her shifts, we'd put up new ones. Soon, other young patients joined our silent rebellion. The friendly dinosaur sticker by the sink reminding everyone to wash their hands, googly eyes. The coffee machine, googly eyes. The fridge, the magnets on the timetable board, the calendar, the entry sign, and even the office door, all adorned with googly eyes. It drove the Wrinkle crazy. She'd spend her entire shift searching for and removing googly eyes, which meant she had less time to torment us. The doctors and therapists, unaware of our motivations, actually encouraged our creative expression. A doctor said it was wonderful to see us being playful and decorating the ward. He noted that this kind of creative engagement was therapeutic. We took it to the next level by sticking googly eyes to our foreheads and running around like cartoonish mental patients. It was ridiculous, but it was also the first time many of us had laughed in months. I joked that I could see everything with my new googly eyes. My friend added that now even the walls could see us too. The Wrinkle eventually retreated. She stopped engaging with us unless absolutely necessary, which was exactly what we wanted. I left the hospital 4 weeks into our googly terror campaign, but my friends who remained told me that the Wrinkle soon transferred to another ward. Months later, my therapist mentioned that they were still finding random googly eyes around the hospital, and it always made him smile to remember our group. Contrary to what many might think, the depression ward wasn't all sadness and gloom. We patients shared a unique brand of dark, silly humor. When you have no reputation to lose and you're slowly rediscovering joy, everyday life can become wonderfully ridiculous. Between our makeshift Chubby Bunny karaoke contests, improvised rollerblade table tennis games, and competitive jello sculpting, being admitted to the psychiatric ward despite one mean nurse ended up being both life-saving and surprisingly enjoyable. Those googly eyes might seem silly, but they helped us reclaim our dignity when we needed it most. I deliver pizzas while working through community college. The job is simple: take pizzas, drive to the address, collect payment, and return to the shop. Most customers are decent, but sometimes you get someone who makes you question humanity. This happened back in 2010 when I worked for a pizza place near the university. Campus deliveries were usually good money, college kids love pizza, and tip well enough. The process was basic: call when you arrive, wait in the parking area, and the customer comes for their food. One evening, I got an order for a large pepperoni and a 2-liter soda going to a dormitory on campus. I called when I arrived and he said he'd be right down. A few minutes later, this guy walked out of the building. He looked like a typical college student: hoodie, jeans, backpack over one shoulder. He handed me cash, 2 10s and a 20 for a $28 order. I thanked him and told him his change was ready with his pizza. He told me to keep the change. I thanked him. I handed him the pizza and soda and he took them and walked away. Then he started running back toward his dorm. Something felt off, so I looked at the money. One $10 bill was ripped in half, and the 20 looked wrong. The paper felt cheap, the printing was blurry, and the color was off. It was counterfeit. By now the guy was inside his dorm, which needed a student key card to enter. I was outside with fake money and half a real bill. I remembered I had his phone number in my cell. I called my manager at the store. I told my manager a customer paid with counterfeit money and ran back into his dorm, and I couldn't get inside. My manager asked if I was serious and wanted the phone number. After giving it, my manager said they would mark it as a prank caller and ban him from deliveries. I was told to return to the store. I was frustrated. A delivery ban seemed like a light punishment for stealing food and passing fake bills. Walking back to my car, I saw a campus security vehicle parked near a police car at the campus entrance. They were running a check stop for Friday night partiers. I walked over to them. I told the officers about delivering a pizza where the customer paid with fake money and a ripped bill before running into his dorm. The police officer asked for the bills. I gave him the fake 20 and ripped 10. The officer said it was counterfeit and asked for information about the person. I mentioned having his phone number. The campus security officer said he could check the student directory. The security officer used his tablet and typed in the phone number. He quickly had a name and dorm room. The security officer said they found the student in room 304 West Hall. The police officer said they would handle it and thanked me for reporting. I went back to the shop. About an hour later, the campus security officer called. He told me they caught him, and it was bigger than just my pizza. When they went to the dorm room, they found the student and his roommate with my pizza and much more. They were arrested for theft under $1,000 for the pizza, possession of counterfeit currency, possession of narcotics, possession of a controlled substance, possession with intent to sell, and possession of stolen property. There was another charge too. A couple days later, when I wasn't working, the guy came to our pizza shop looking for me. My co-worker told me about it the next day. My co-worker said some angry guy came in asking for me. I asked what happened. My co-worker said our manager told the guy I wasn't working, which made him lose his temper. He threw chairs and knocked over napkin dispensers. The manager called the police, who arrested him again in the lobby. This time he was charged with trespassing, criminal mischief, and vandalism. They also found a knife on him, adding a weapons charge, though that one got dropped. I never testified in court, so he probably took a plea deal. He was expelled from the university. A campus security officer who became a regular customer told me the administration has a zero-tolerance policy for such behavior. All because this entitled jerk tried to scam a pizza delivery person with fake money. That pizza cost him his education, gave him a criminal record, and probably thousands in legal fees. I still deliver pizza sometimes, but I always check the bills carefully now. This happened last year, and looking back on it now, I still can't believe how it all went down. I've been working in IT for several years, specializing in cloud computing, specifically Microsoft Azure. In my area, everyone knows everyone in the tech field, so networking is crucial for career opportunities. When a position opened at a private school through a consultant I knew who was acting as the hiring manager, it seemed perfect. He was looking for someone with Azure experience since he wanted to migrate the school systems to the cloud, and I had already done similar migrations twice before. I started right before summer break, which at this school was a glorious 9 weeks long. This gave me plenty of time to familiarize myself with their systems, network infrastructure, and just get comfortable in the new environment. The team was small, just me, two desktop support guys, one only part-time, and the consultant manager who worked 3 partial days each week. After about 3 months, the school hired a permanent manager and let go of the consultant. At first, everything continued smoothly. I worked on setting up the cloud migration prerequisites while juggling other projects like managed printing and network upgrades. I did notice I was getting pulled away from my cloud tasks more frequently than I'd expected, but figured that was just the reality of working in such a small team. By December, my 6 month probation period was coming to an end, so I approached my manager about scheduling a review meeting. I asked her if we could discuss my probation review that week, but she told me she was too busy with budget reports. This kept happening repeatedly with various excuses until mid-January, when she finally agreed to meet. I walked in expecting a routine review, but what I got was completely different. She started the meeting by telling me she had been observing my work for months and was disappointed with my performance. She then spent over 30 minutes listing every minor mistake or issue she'd had with me, never once having mentioned any of them before. She criticized how I organized the server closet, complained about response times to tickets, and nitpicked my documentation style. She went on to tell me that she didn't believe cloud migration was the right direction for the school. She said they needed someone with stronger on-premise infrastructure and networking skills. When I reminded her that during my interviews I had specifically mentioned networking was my weakest area and that I specialized in cloud computing, she simply replied that priorities change. She told me she was extending my probation while creating a new role that might better suit my skill set. Before leaving me alone in the room, she warned me to think long and hard about whether I wanted this job, because right now I wasn't performing well enough to keep it. She then left me alone in the meeting room. I sat there for about 20 minutes, my mind racing. I'd just bought an apartment 6 months ago. How would I make the mortgage payments? What would my family think? I'd given my best effort to everything I did, and it still wasn't enough for her. But then her words echoed in my head about whether I wanted this job. And the answer was no, I didn't. That night I signed up with all the local job agencies and started checking job sites daily. At work, I pretended her criticism had been helpful and that I was working hard to improve. In reality, I could barely stand being in the same room as her. She also constantly nagged me about my unused vacation days. She would repeatedly tell me I needed to use my annual leave or I'd lose it. I explained that I understood how holidays worked and had scheduled 3 weeks at the end of May when my family was visiting. About 2 months after my review, I booked a couple days off for a job interview, telling her I wanted a long weekend. I got the job. It was more aligned with my expertise, came with a $7,000 pay increase, and had a bonus scheme up to 25% annually. I came back the following Monday ready to resign, but found she'd scheduled a meeting to discuss my new role. I brought my resignation letter in an envelope. She began the meeting by saying I had improved slightly but still wasn't good enough for the job, and she wanted to propose something new. Before she could finish, I interrupted her and handed her the envelope. She opened it, read it, and her expression changed immediately. She stammered in surprise, then said my notice period was a month, so my final day would be June 8th. I corrected her, explaining that while on probation, my notice period was actually only 2 weeks, which meant my last day would be May 23rd, since the 24th and 25th were public holidays. She tried to claim that I had passed my probation, but I reminded her about the letter I signed agreeing to the extension, and pointed out that I hadn't signed any contract for the new role yet. After some back and forth, she finally agreed. I also reminded her about my unused vacation days, mentioning that I had almost all of my annual leave days remaining, which would need to be paid out since my end date was before my scheduled vacation. The school was going through major cost cutting, and this would definitely make her look bad. She suggested I take the leave instead of working my notice period. I declined, telling her I'd rather work the 8 remaining days and receive payment for a full month on top of my regular salary. She reluctantly agreed and said she'd talk to HR. When I was leaving the meeting, I thanked her for her advice from January. When she looked confused, I reminded her that she told me to think long and hard about whether I wanted this job. I explained that I had decided I didn't want it and found a much better package elsewhere. I told her about my new position with my own office, complete with a coffee machine and mini fridge, supportive colleagues, and time to focus on Azure like I was hired to do originally, all while getting paid more. I heard from former colleagues that she got fired just 3 months after I left. Apparently, she clashed with many of the teaching staff with her management style. Guess I wasn't the only one who couldn't stand working with her. Now I'm happily building cloud infrastructure without someone micromanaging me and changing job descriptions on a whim.